Real estate in Vietnam attractive to FDI and foreigner.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of BizLive. I'm Hoàng Nguyên, and this week we will talk about FDI into Vietnam real estate sectors. In the first 4 months of the year, the amount of FDI capital registered in the real estate industry increased 4 times compared to the same period last year. Among them, investors from Asia and the Middle East are the one putting down the most money. And experts say that Vietnam real estate market is relatively prominent in Southeast Asia. And this advantage is compounded by the stability and impressive growth rate of the economy. In addition, populations of up to 100 million people and not yet facing a serious aging period also show that the potential customer base is still very large. The results of attracting registered FDI capital in the first quarter affirmed investor confidence in Vietnam investment environment to continue making new investment decisions and expanding existing projects, especially in real estate market. And to better understand this topic, we invited Mr. Troy Griffith, Deputy Managing Director of Civil to Vietnam. Thank you for joining the program. What is the general situation of Vietnam real estate market in the first quarter?
The economy is in good shape overall. Domestic economy is going very, very well. Still really good consumption and good retail sales. However, what we do see is a distinct lack of approved projects, residential projects. And so this is meaning that there is no supply. It's come at the same time where there's low consumer confidence. And so we're coming off the back of high interest rates. We're now moving into a lower interest rate environment. And we're hoping that that will therefore stimulate more demand, provided that we can get more approvals pushed through, from the bureaucratic side.
According to assessments from real estate experts, when the global economic context is volatile, emerging countries like Vietnam are becoming a potential market to attract investment. But more importantly, the attractive rate of return in the Vietnamese market is an important factor in foreign investors' decisions. By looking back at transactions from 2018 to the first 9 months of 2023, Vietnam recorded a total amount of investment capital and real estate MA reaching $4.2 billion, of which housing and industrial types account for 46% and 28% respectively. According to Savills, a large amount of capital from foreign investors will be poured into the Vietnam's real estate market in the period 2024 to 2026.
According to the recent surveys, in terms of opportunistic and value-added investment strategies for the real estate sector, Vietnam ranks second among the most sought-after emerging markets, ranked only after India. So what does this data mean?
So this is an annual survey that's produced, and it's a good survey methodology because it's looking forward. But it's important to note that this is a survey of fund managers, private equity participants, investors across a whole range of interviewees. And so it's not actual deals that have been done. It's more looking forward as to where the opportunity will present. So yeah, really cool that Vietnam's number 2. It does show it's on everybody's radar, and foreigners, investors are really looking carefully at Vietnam as an investment location.
And which real estate segment are foreign investors focusing on the most in Vietnam in 2024?
The Government Statistics Office has just recently come out. We can see that manufacturing is the key for FDI. So registered FDI is all into manufacturing and processing by a long, long way. And so that's very heavily invested. I think that's as you look at FDI coming in, but there is also sitting behind that, particularly from where we sit, selling property to foreign investors, particularly at the institutional level. There's a very, very strong interest in the retail story that Vietnam has to offer. So you want to, in the past, that's only been available by investing in, say, Vin Retail. But now there's Thai groups, there's many other interested groups out there also looking at retail. Strictly FDI, manufacturing, processing, and real estate's coming second.
Has the recent price adjustment cycle made the Vietnamese real estate market more attractive to foreign investors?
The cycle itself hasn't actually dropped, but it has taken a pause. And so where we were getting 2 years ago, very, very strong growth, even after COVID. Very, very strong growth in any measure, whether it's retail sales of goods, whether it's rents, whether it's yields compressing, land values, everything was growing very strongly. So what's happened now is that the economy overall is taking a bit of a pause, and the prices of property are reflecting that. So you're not seeing, for example, rampant growth in industrial land values anymore. We're starting to see a bit of a steadying influence there. And I think that's across the board.
And which region are investors from currently investing the most in real estate in Vietnam? And what are the reasons for this shift?
The FDI data shows the domicile or the area where the investment is registered. And so at the moment, we see a lot coming from Singapore or from Hong Kong. But that's simply where the company is registered and not necessarily the actual, the originating investment. I think for a large part, the industrial side, we can see, there's very, very strong, there's always been strong Taiwanese and Chinese interest. We also see Europeans coming. There's been an enormous amount of investment, into tertiary style industrial rather than traditional brown dirt manufacturing. So we're starting to see good value added manufacturing. Every week goes by with another fantastic announcement of some further investment of this tertiary nature into industrial. So that's really good.
According to the survey, compared with other countries in the region, Vietnam is attracting more attention from investors because of its stable macroeconomic foundation and low interest rates.
Chúng tôi thấy là họ đang cũng rất là tích cực trong cái việc tìm kiếm và tăng cái sự hiện diện của mình tại thị trường ở Việt Nam. Việt Nam cũng đã có những cái đợt cắt giảm lãi suất trong thời gian qua thì cũng giúp thị trường của chúng ta trở nên hấp dẫn hơn.
Historically, investment capital flows into this region have mainly come from familiar Asian investors such as Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, and South Korea. Investment funds from more developed markets in North America and Europe have not yet penetrated deeply. However, with the unstable situation in many parts of the world, investors are looking for new opportunities and starting actively considering assets in the Asia-Pacific region.
Many individual investors are also looking to purchase and sell land, often without development, to take advantage of the capital appreciation of land. Though it is worth noting that the real estate market is less liquid, therefore less easy to potentially sell and withdraw your finances from.
The representative of this investor from Malaysia said that although the Vietnamese real estate market has many challenges, it also has many opportunities. Therefore, this is a good time to continue increasing land funds to increase housing supply.
Một cái dòng vốn FDI của tập đoàn Mã Lai sẽ tiếp tục đầu tư vào thị trường bất động sản của Việt Nam, tập trung đẩy mạnh vào việc phát triển quỹ đất, và cái điều này được thể hiện thông qua cái hoạt động là chúng tôi vẫn đang rất là tích cực để làm việc với lại những đối tác địa phương.
In the first half of 2024, investors in most markets will continue to wait and observe and learn about the market. However, by the second half of 2024, commercial real estate project sales activities will accelerate as the market is expecting interest rate cuts by central banks in the region.
Do taxes and fee cause any problems for foreign investors?
Taxation in Vietnam is as reasonable as anywhere else, particularly if you are a major manufacturer coming to invest in Vietnam. And the national government's very clear on incentives. And so you can negotiate some pretty good corporate income taxation incentives in order to come to Vietnam. The global minimum taxation has recently been a big and sensitive discussion point. But look, it is a global minimum taxation. It is applying everywhere. And so it's a pretty level playing field across the board in that regard. So I don't think that Vietnam is disadvantaged or advantaged actually than any other competing regional peer group country. If we move to look, there's the capital gains tax and the other side of the taxation regime in Vietnam. Look, I think Vietnam has a very soft taxation regime overall. I think there can be enormous gains made in property taxation. Property taxation is a fair and equitable method of raising revenue for the government, and it's not really fully taken advantage of in Vietnam as it is in many other countries where property taxation is a major source of revenue for the coffers of the government.
And what are the advantages or disadvantages of project approval or licensing for foreign investors?
If you think about the competing peer group of perhaps, the countries in 6 months to a year, whereas in Vietnam, you're probably still waiting for your approvals to go through. Some provinces have taken this on board, and in particular in the north, you can see that provinces are very proactive and take this on board with their one-stop shop processes and shepherd the investors through. But overall, I think this is probably one area that can stand some improvement. I think in the main overall is to be competitive, and that's at its most simple. I think in some provinces that are exemplary, you might be through the whole process in a year, whereas others you're probably still looking, more than 2 years. If you're an industrialist, that's a year of manufacturing and revenue that you've lost, and so you can then very quickly think about alternate competing locations. That's not to say that Vietnam doesn't have other criteria that make it a more favourable location. Cost of manpower and resourcing still very affordable for good quality. Land cost not so bad. Infrastructure developing very well. All of those sorts of things are still making Vietnam a very attractive location.
According to a report from the Ministry of Construction, since the 2014 housing law took effect, there have only been about 3,500 foreign organizations and individuals owning houses in Vietnam, mainly in big cities. For other types of real estate other than housing, there are no legal regulations allowing foreigners to own. This is a bottleneck, hindering investment capital flows into potential real estate segments.
Người nước ngoài họ đánh giá cái ngành du lịch, kinh tế du lịch của Việt Nam là một cái ngành rất tiềm năng, có cái sự phát triển. Trong khi đó thì chúng ta đang cần tăng tốc thực hiện cái đầu tư phát triển hạ tầng du lịch, các khu du lịch, các khu vui chơi, đặc biệt là các cái sản phẩm hạ tầng lưu trú.
Foreign real estate developers are extremely keen to expand their presence in Vietnam, whether this is industrial, hospitality, office, retail, residential. So having a foreign component and a foreign demand segment would be very helpful for developers and the state budget.
Even housing, the type of real estate that foreigners can own, still has quantity limitations. Specifically, foreigners are not allowed to own more than 30% of the apartments in each apartment building and not more than 30% of the total number of apartments in all apartment buildings in an area.
We'd like to encourage a higher proportion of apartments and villas available to foreigners. In villas particularly, 10% is very small. If a villa development is 50 units, then that's only 5 take over and become too dynamic. But at the moment, I think it needs to be stimulated more than it is.
Rõ ràng tôi không thể cấp cái quyền sở hữu nhà mà lại tách cái quyền sử dụng đất ra được. Mâu thuẫn đó nó dẫn đến việc là giải quyết cái thủ tục cấp giấy sở hữu cho người nước ngoài mua nhà, chúng ta nó bị vướng mắc, và đây cũng chính là cái mà hiện nay tại sao, câu trả lời tại sao rất nhiều địa phương không xử lý được cái chuyện sở hữu nhà ở cho người nước ngoài khi họ mua nhà của các dự án ở Việt Nam.
You need to mobilize a lot of cash. It's very difficult to get foreign financing for Vietnamese real estate projects, just because, again, a foreign bank does not necessarily have the collateral that it needs, because a foreigner cannot own real estate in Vietnam without limits.
Thailand has built a very active expatriate real estate market, especially in Bangkok and beach locations. Malaysia has also been very successful in promoting the second home policy. Attracting foreign investment into potential types of real estate is bringing huge revenue to these countries. As a bright spot in growth and an attractive investment destination, it is clear that Vietnam needs to quickly catch up with market demand to take advantage of resources for development.
Does 500 planning approval need to be adjusted to further attract eagles in real estate sectors?
This is the $1,000,000 question. So the actual the 500 process itself, we all understand, and it's not a dissimilar process to most other countries. And so that we understand it. What we need is probably bookending on timing and process. So you can't simply wait for such a long time while bureaucracy's wheels are turning very, very slowly to get this 500 through. And that's exactly the problem that we're confronted with now, with this lack of supply of residential product, because the 1:500s aren't being approved. Investment certificates and others are taking a long time. So this is, the process is understood, but it's the timing and the execution. It would be wonderful if there was bookends. Many countries have bookends where the government has to respond within a certain amount of time in order to keep that process moving. And those sort of regulations or guidelines would be very, very interesting for Vietnam.
According to current regulations, newly built residential land and mixed-use land, including residential land functions, must be in accordance with planning, land use plans, and detailed planning at a scale of 1:500. This regulation is not feasible in reality because only real estate projects can do 1:500 planning, and people and foreigners who split 1 or 2 plots cannot do 1:500 planning themselves. Many experts suggest that the conditions for plot separation should be kept as before. If this regulation is changed, many foreign individual investors will certainly feel more interested in investing in real estate in Vietnam, especially with potential projects right from the early stages.
In recent times, real estate prices in Vietnam have continuously increased. What disadvantages does this cause for economy? How to avoid price bubble in this situation?
Most sectors have increased or plateaued. If they're increasing, it's at a slower rate of growth, or in fact they have plateaued. And so I don't think the continuous increase is there anymore. I think there has been a very big reality check over this steady price increase. I think the notion that property, in particular residential, continuous is good. It's sound. The broader population is getting more wealth. It's the wealth effect that's occurring in an emerging country. And so there's greater equity build-up. So the greater population has more equity, can trade up through their houses and get better and better houses, whatever. Interest rates are now very, very low. We just need some consumer confidence to get and also that supply to come through. So I don't see anything wrong with continuous increasing. I don't see any burdens on the economy. I think it's a favourable outcome of property investment. For institutional grade foreign investors, so those guys that are coming in that are with the big ticket items and they're investing into development sites, into all of this sort of thing. I don't necessarily see that there's any issues at all there for those foreign investors. In fact, they should be expecting that there will be price growth, and they're making their money on the escalations as they go through. I think the other part to bear in mind around bubbles, if you're talking about residential, is that Vietnam and more particularly Ho Chi Minh has historically had a lot of C and B grade product delivered, and that's the product we want. That's mass market. The issue is now that in particular we see Hanoi as a lot of B and A grade being delivered, and this is a little bit of a product mismatch. We also see it to a lesser degree in Ho Chi Minh City. This is developers wanting more margin and making better products. And that's okay while the general population can continue to afford it. And we see that there is greater affordability in Hanoi for sure. But when it moves to the broader, where we are in the Ho Chi Minh cycle at the moment, we do see a little bit of a mismatch. And we would hope that with more 500 approvals in the outlying areas, that these will then have more supply added and more liquidity. The other good thing is that over the back of this is that there is infrastructure improving, and that infrastructure allows the cheaper land to come on. and therefore be developed to make this more affordable B and C grade mass market residential.
And finally, how will the land law taking effect from July 1st of this year create favorable conditions for foreign investors?
Now, we have very big hopes around this, and this is a really it's a very good initiative by the government. The pull forward is welcomed. One of the big things that where we sit from the property development side, in particular, is the market value framework and the stipulated price. And look, for a long while, this has been the reason that infrastructure spend hasn't been dispersed. Compensation and clearance for clearing land hasn't been able to take place because the historical stipulated price framework hasn't been market value. So with a concerted push towards a market value framework that the land law, the new land law, the amendments to the land law are envisaging, then we would hope that can hasten up the infrastructure delivery, the compensation and clearance, and really start to push a lot more development for Vietnam across the board. So we've got big hopes for it. I don't think it's going to be immediate. There's a lot of moving parts within with an initiative like this. Remembering also it's being devolved down to the lower levels, so there's more autonomy given at a provincial level to help implement that. So let's see how it all is implemented. But we're really happy with this initiative, and I think it's got big potential to assist Vietnam's development industry.
So what are development prospects 2024?
We're thinking it's going to be pretty flat overall. So there's a couple of things. The domestic economy remains strong. We've got good retail sale, good goods and services growing. FDI is continuing on very strong. So that's your foreign part of the economy and the domestic economy both going very well. We've gone through a little bit of a readjustment phase, and so now both corporate and domestic savings are at all-time highs. So this is really good, the money in the bank. But now what we're having is the next tipping point where interest rates are now so low that the bank deposits are no longer favorable, and then that money is starting to look for alternative investment channels. And so we'd expect in the next 3 months or so that there'll be more direct property investment as investors are seeking good alternate returns. At the same time, we're very well aware the State Bank has got very open credit policies that they're going to continue. So far, not much of that credit has been taken up, but looking forward, these sort of policies take 3 to 6 months for the rubber to hit the road, and so we'd expect that come the end of the year with some more supply for residential, then things should be opening up very well. Overall, the health of the property markets is pretty good.
Once again, thank you for joining our program. After the discussion with our expert, we can see that Vietnam real estate market in the eyes of foreign investors is very attractive because of its unique advantages. That is stability not only in political situation, but in the context of a strong macroeconomic recovery after the pandemic, with inflation remaining low and exchange rates controlled more stably by the state, in correlation with other countries in the region. And therefore, in the real estate sector, Vietnam still remains a notable investment destination for foreign investors and real estate developers in location and segments with good development potential. And that's also wrapped up this edition of B-Slide. To rewatch our program, you can log on to vtvgo.vn or download our mobile applications VTV Go. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.